Hey y'all, it's Aaron, and today I am answering a question by American Johnson, who is also known as Non-Compete. I will put a link in the description to their channel. They are a leftist political theorist, and they make some really good content, and you should definitely go check out their channel and subscribe. So, one of their recent videos.
For people who are exploring anarchism for the first time, it can be really difficult to wrap your head around basic questions like who will take out the garbage and how would we stay safe without police? Especially when the blanket answers to such simple, concrete questions as to Google Murray Bookchin or read the bread book. Now, I agree that there is a wealth of great information buried in classic anarchist literature, but asking people to read complex tomes to find the answers to basic questions is maybe a little unreasonable, and it's probably already scared a lot of people away who might otherwise have become anarchists. So all that being said, what I'm going to present in this video is my personal take on how an anarchist society might work in practice. I hope that this will inspire other anarchist writers and YouTubers to share their ideas for how stateless socialist societies might take shape, so that we can give people better and more digestible resources when they ask that question, so, how would anarchism actually work?
What would anarchism look like implemented in real life? That is a question that when I saw Non-Compete or American trying to answer it, I was like really excited because, first of all, did a good job, but also that's something that I'm personally really passionate about, and making these ideas accessible for me, that feels like an area that I can really apply my skills in, and I feel like we could really make an impact in the world just by getting the ideas that have already been discussed out there. And so anarchism is one of those ideas that's been out there for like hundreds of years, or thousands actually, some might argue, but yet today, when you mention it, people only think of like chaos and disorder and all that, when in fact the anarchist symbol has a O representing order, and anarchists consider capitalism to be a disordered system. But anyway, not to get too deep into that, I really agree with the question of, or the point being made that we need to try and give people a picture of what anarchism would look like, that they can then imagine and then decide whether they like it or not. Like, it's very difficult to reach people when you're basically asking them to come up with that answer themselves before they can even tell whether they like your ideas. And so I think this is one area that is very difficult to answer, but it's also probably the most important question to answer. And I feel like to a large degree, those kinds of ideas and those pictures and stuff have been suppressed or not always given the green lights in a capitalist run world, where those ideas kind of would not be good news for people who are trying to take advantage of others. So I think for a society to be truly liberatory and cooperative, it has to both cater for your individual needs while at the same time catering for our collective needs. Now, that doesn't mean you can say, oh, I need to hurt that person, because that's just false. You don't need to do that. Nobody needs to hurt anyone else, and nobody needs to take advantage of anyone else. That's a myth, and it's a myth capitalism has been very heavily trying to convince people of. If we are going to fix climate change, if we're going to end suffering and oppression, and if we want to be able to meet everyone's individual and collective needs, then we're going to need an environment that's cooperative and not one of competition. So a cooperative society would allow the maximum possible liberty while also making sure that nobody gets excluded from having those liberties. And so I personally see anarchism, and I'm specifically talking about the non-authoritarian socialist anarchism, which is real anarchism, like me. But that's what I personally think hits this nail on the head. And so there's so much to talk about when it comes to anarchism, but what I'm going to do is just give you 3 quick points about how we can get there before I get to the actual picture. And the first is that we all need to realize that everything is self-interest. Every action you make is self-interest, and if it doesn't feel like that, it's because the logic around it is a bit warped. Cooperation benefits the individual, that's the second thing. And number 3, we need intersectionality. And intersectionality, what that means is that you can't see anyone's oppression as isolated. You have to look at them in their full context of all the different things that they are struggling and being oppressed with, and how when you have multiple vectors of oppression on you, it multiplies the difficulty and the struggles you have. And that's a crucially important thing for people to realize. I'm now going to tell you about 8 pillars of Anarchist Society that I could think of. And this is a work in progress. I feel like these 8 things, the society that we are looking for is going to have these things. And these things are going to be the cogs in the machine almost that allow us to work together, and allow us to cooperate. So, number 1 in my pillars of Anarchist Society is production for use. And I kind of mentioned this on my channel before, but why are you producing? And producing, like, why are you doing any work? Why are you offering the service you're offering, or making the thing you're making? And under capitalist systems, the reason why you are making a thing is that you can exchange it for another thing, whether that's bartering or exchanging for money or exchanging for some other thing that you consider to be a valid exchange. And production for use is like, let's make things for use. Let's make the things that people need to use and only make them to be used. Don't make 1,000 iPods and hype up the marketing and etc. Like, just see who wants one, make that many. That's production for use. And it also has a few sub-points that you might want to think about, and that is that there will be no money, we would have open standards, and we would have to have a supply and demand infrastructure. So imagine if something like Etsy, eBay, and Amazon combined, and everything on there was free, but people were only offering up to their capacity, and we were figuring out how to get everyone the things they needed. That kind of infrastructure. Okay, so that brings us to the second pillar, and that's mutual aid. And so what mutual aid means, so mutual in the sense that it benefits both parties. And so the idea is that anytime that one person helps another person, the entire world gets slightly better, because there's one less need in the world, and the more people are doing that, so if everyone is trying to meet whatever needs that they can, then everyone else's needs in turn get met. And we kind of already trying to do this through capitalism, but it's really not working, and we're wasting a lot of time and energy on things that rich people want, while people who are struggling to survive aren't having anything made for them. So what mutual aid is like, let's not make things for who has the most value to throw at it. Let's make things for those who need it. And mutual aid is like, when we do that, then the environment we create is one where we can all find our needs met and all be supported. So we are talking about things though like free healthcare, crisis response, an agreement for aid. Yeah, so another way that we will all benefit is having the third pillar of anarchism, according to Aaron, and that is workers controlling the means of production. Now, what does means of production mean? Well, it literally just means the things that you use to produce things. So my cell phone is a means of production because it is allowing me to produce a video right now. But usually when we talk about means of production in a political sense, people are talking about factories and stuff. But anyway, the point is, whoever's working on a specific tool or equipment or whatever, those are the people who get to say on how those things get used and how, when and how they work them and stuff. So basically the people doing the work get the say on how they do the work and what work they do. And being able to direct your own productive efforts is one of the best ways at alleviating depression and feelings of alienation and stuff. So that's a really important thing. Okay, the fourth pillar of an anarchist society, according to Aaron, would be that we only recognize personal property. And what that means is personal property is your home and your belongings, and that's it. So whatever it is that you use to live your life, things that would make you comfortable, toothbrushes, etc. Those are personal, and those get recognized, and they get recognized because we see them almost as an extension of our bodies. And so at its core, a person's body is the easiest way of recognizing the end of their domain. Once you move outside of your body, you start to interact in spaces that might not necessarily be you. But things that allow you to take care of your body, like a place to stay, a place to make food, a place to relax, clothes and things that are self-care, those kinds of things, you need them in order to keep that body in good condition and to be healthy with it. And so that's why personal property is recognized, because it's a need people have of taking care of themselves. And then anything that isn't being used personally by someone is considered publicly shared. But this doesn't mean that as soon as you walk out of your house, someone can come and claim that it's theirs now because you're not using it anymore. For residency and stuff like that, we can have a bit of infrastructure around of being able to tell people whether something's in use or not, and we can organize ourselves that way. So we can figure out who's staying where. Like it's a solvable problem, and So let's get on to the fifth pillar of a anarchist society, according to Aaron. And number 5 is open science and technology. And so what I mean by that is we will need to have need-based innovation. And so you'll notice that a lot of the time scientific breakthroughs and technologies will, number one, they'll seem really promising, but then nothing really comes of it, and you kind of like, okay, that sounded like it was going to be so helpful, and now it's like sort of gone nowhere. And there's various reasons for that to happen. But yeah, the second way things could go is that people will find a way of making money out of it, or people with a lot of money will want it. And that will cause the progress to continue until it's produced, but that'll be limited in scope, and only the privileged people will get to benefit from that development of science and technology. And then the third sometimes might happen is it might sometimes end up being good for the public. But I think if we looked at the scale of human innovation, there will be a vast minority of things that were publicly beneficial and not at least first limited to a privileged few. So the idea of open science and technology is to break down those barriers. And so things like patents would be irrelevant and gotten rid of. All software would become open source software. We would have open protocols like net neutrality. We would have a way of peer reviewing that's accessible and open to the public. All academic research would be open to the public and accessible and free. And scientists will all cooperate together. There will be no competing between corporations for who can out-innovate each other. They will simply just work on what's the best thing we can make together, or let's share our knowledge and make different things, but make it with each other's help. And so I think free education also fits into that. And basically just opening our potential, turning the gaze of technology and development away from what does the rich want to see in the world to what does everybody else want to see in the world. And that leads us to number 6. And number 6 is the next pillar of an anarchist society, according to Aaron, and that is police, prison, and border abolition. And those institutions are inherently unethical. They are not actually able to produce a positive outcome. Like, if anything positive comes out of it, it's a coincidence, or it was that person's resilience, not a success of any of those systems. They exist for oppression. They exist to keep the rich safe from losing their privilege, and they exist to keep those without privilege from gaining too much privilege. And so an anarchist society would not have police, prisons, or borders of any kind. And what that would look like would mean we would need to have restorative justice, there would need to be reparations, and we would need to be treating the causes of harmfulness in people rather than the symptoms. And while restorative justice can include periods of a person allowing themselves to be helped, and obviously if somebody is just intent on being harmful and they're not interested in any kind of cooperation whatsoever, then you would simply choose not to interact with them. The last case scenario would be to exile that person from your society because they simply do not want to participate in it and are trying to harm it and stuff. So number 7 in the pillars for an anarchist society by Aaron is a federation of autonomous community. By federation, it's like a whole lot of the communities can voluntarily choose to work together for mutual benefits. The way we often do now, but it'll be a lot cooler. And what a community would mean would it can be any shape or size. You do want to try and keep it to as small as possible, but obviously not so small that people are lonely and stuff. But open data would be really important. A sort of guaranteed free travel where there's regional communications, and then for decisions that need to happen on larger scales, you would have the different communities would be able to, there would be some kind of open platform where we could communicate, and if need be to make decisions, we can have that kind of liquid, it's called liquid because it's so flexible, and it allows people to give the person that they trust the most with a particular issue their trust to make the right decision in whatever debates and stuff are happening to try and resolve conflicts and stuff. And that brings us to the last pillar of an anarchist society, according to Aaron, and that is free association. And so we spoke about having open borders and free mobility, but free association, it goes beyond that, and it goes into the way that we associate with each other personally as well. And so what it sort of means is a consent-based socializing where people's consent is honored and sought when needed and not violated, and people are given the opportunity to leave or join whichever group they find most appealing to them, but obviously each group would also have the freedom whether to include or exclude that person. So it works both ways. You need to have an agreement between the individual and the community that they want to potentially stay in, maybe. If many communities might have open policies on that, but if there is a community that might have, for whatever reason, a limit, like maybe we're talking about the International Space Station or something, then that's who gets to join would be a mutual free association where the person joining and those including have all agreed that it's cool. And the reason why it's important is, like, we don't want to go back to a system where some people can enforce their will on others and create a dystopia. So free association is a way that people are given agency. So if we were to imagine maybe a computer game, free association would be being able to not have any of the areas be sort of locked out for you, where unless of course a community has chosen to disassociate with you individually, but there won't be any blanket policies on who is or isn't allowed in. So the default for everyone is to treat them as an individual and not as a stereotype, not as a person who is able to be predicted or anything, but seen as an individual who has their own reasons for whatever it is that they are doing, and that those get respected, and then of course that they also will be expected to respect everyone else's limitations. Okay, so that was a lot to say, and this video is quite long, but I just, when I saw the question, I just got so excited and I was like inspired to make this. I just wrote down some notes and put the camera on, and I'll do some editing, and hopefully this has been helpful. I feel like this initiative that American has started, where the call has been sent out for those who feel like this is the kind of society that we need, to try and make an attempt at describing it so that those who are interested can get a better idea of if this is what they are looking for. And obviously, I am making this video because I believe there's people out there who are looking for this. And in fact, I believe 99% of the people in the world would consider such a society to be indistinguishably utopian from today. And that's something that I hope you can all join in and answer this question to yourself. Even if you don't have a YouTube channel, create one. It's not that hard. Just record on your phone, put it up there, and it doesn't have to be fancy and edited like the tryhards. But let's get this conversation going. There is no better time than now. Like, we primed for change. Okay, we still have the opportunity for free communication to a large degree, and so this is the message that needs to go out now. So yeah. Hey all, so I'm going to make a part 2 where I give you a hypothetical example of one of these societies working. But I'm going to take a bit of time to plan that out, so if you want to make sure you catch that, then you're welcome to subscribe, or otherwise hopefully you catch it. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye.